Good evening, and what a wonderful evening it has been so far, right? Yes. I am Crystal Peterson, Chief Inclusion and Global Community Relations Officer with Brown-Forman, and we've been in the spirits business for over 150 years. But we know that our best spirit resides in our people and in our communities that sustain us. We are so honored to be here tonight in celebration of the Ali Center, Muhammad Ali, and the Humanitarian Awards. We've been longtime sponsors of the Ali Center and the Humanitarian Awards, and I could think of no other way to spend my evening, this evening, than hearing about all of these awardees who have just been so inspiring to all of us in what they do and how they work to better our communities. And tonight, I am honored to present our last award of the evening, Lifetime Achievement. Jason Flom is an American media executive, podcaster, author, and social justice activist. He is the founder and CEO of Lava Media, LLC, which includes Lava Music and Lava for Good podcast. He has served as chairman and CEO of Atlantic Records, Virgin Records, and Capitol Music Group, and is responsible for launching global superstars, including Tori Amos, Katy Perry, Lorde, and Greta Van Fleet. Tonight, however, we are celebrating his longtime humanitarian achievements. Jason is a leading philanthropist, an activist, and criminal justice reform, and an internationally recognized and celebrated public speaker. He serves on the boards of many leading justice organizations around the country, including the Innocence Project, where he is the founding board member. As part of this work, he launched the podcast Wrongful Conviction, which alongside Lava for Good's slate of innocence, advocacy, and criminal legal reform podcasts, has been downloaded over 70 million times and have topped charts and critics lists around the world. The Wrongful Conviction podcast features interviews with men and women who have spent decades in prison for crimes they did not commit, some even sentenced to death. The podcast has helped free many innocent people and inspired changes in the laws of several states. For all of his accomplishments in the worlds of music, podcasts, and media, Jason is recognized tonight as an advocate, activist, and philanthropist. We honor him for shining a light on the injustices of our carceral system and for showing us all a path towards a more just and equitable society for all. Please join me in welcoming and congratulating Jason Flom for receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Louisville. How's everybody doing out there? Come on, didn't you hear I come from the entertainment business? That's not gonna cut it. I said, how's everybody doing out there? Can I get a whoop whoop? Okay, that's better. Now, as I was watching Daniel, Nicholas, Andrew, Pashtana, Dr. Noor, Nidhi, Ana Luisa, Leon, Holly, and Rodney, I had a minor revelation sitting right there in my seat. I was like, wow, this is the first time I've ever been this happy to be this old. Because if not, there's no way I'm getting a Lifetime Achievement Award, not with that group, no way. I mean, Lonnie, give me a break. I'm supposed to follow them? Like, this is not what I bargained for, but I'll do the best I can. In 1954, when Cassius Clay was just 12 years old, his prized red Schwinn bicycle was stolen from in front of the Columbia Auditorium right here in Louisville. Seeking to report the theft, he was directed to the basement of the building, and there he found police officer Joe Martin, who serendipitously happened to be the director of boxing for the Louisville Recreation Department. Of course, everything was forever changed. Young Cassius listened. The officer listened as a visibly angry and understandably upset Cassius swore that he was going to whoop whoever stole his bike. Well, Martin looked down calmly at the youngster and told him, before you start talking about whooping somebody, you better learn how to fight. Joe invited him to learn to box at the gym, and 6 weeks later, he won his very first fight. In 1993, I had my red bike moment. I saw a story in the newspaper about a man named Stephen Lennon who was serving 15 years to life in a maximum security prison for a nonviolent first offense cocaine possession charge. Stephen was the same age as I was at the time, 32, and he'd been locked up for 8 years. I, on the other hand, had been sober for almost that same amount of time. And I realized how very easily our positions could have been reversed. Growing up in the heyday of the music business, I'd had my own issues with cocaine and substance abuse, and I became acutely aware that if not for the color of my skin and the zip code I grew up in, I would have been sent to jail instead of rehab. I knew I had to do something, but first, I had to learn how to fight. I studied the law and contacted the only criminal defense attorney I knew. It was a man named Bob Kalina, and he represented two of the artists I had signed, Stone Temple Pilots and Skid Row. Some of you are old enough to remember them, and you may remember that they were getting arrested like weekly in those days. So I had this guy on speed dial, you know? So I called him up, and he agreed to take the case pro bono, even though he said it was virtually hopeless. 6 months later, I found myself in a courtroom in Malone, New York, holding Stephen's mother's hand while her son was led into the courtroom in shackles. After a relatively short proceeding, the judge banged his gavel down and said in a very judgy type of voice, "The motion is granted." Well, I had won my very first fight. And it was at that moment that I realized that maybe I had a superpower, and I decided then and there that I was going to use it to help as many people as I possibly could. It was around that time that I remember telling a gentleman I met who I understood to be, well, he was definitely old, but I understood he was wise. And I told him that I was going to go on a crusade to decriminalize drugs, eliminate mandatory sentencing, abolish the death penalty, free the innocent, and put an end to mass incarceration. Well, this guy sort of almost condescendingly put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Kid, it takes 30 years to change anything." Well, here we are 30 years later, and real progress has been made to eliminate mandatory sentencing, decriminalize cannabis, and I'm happy to say the support for the death penalty is at an all-time low. And many more reforms are well within reach. Bail reform is taking place in many places with tremendous success to public safety as well as to human beings. And actually, for the first time in my lifetime, in the last 3 years, our prison population has declined by a significant amount. It's still way too high, but it's down, so that's progress. Now, my dad, Joe Flom, grew up in extreme poverty in Brooklyn, New York. His parents were immigrants who didn't speak any English. They spoke Yiddish, and His father was a chronically unemployed labor organizer, and his mother a seamstress. And from an early age, the odds were stacked against him, but he became a pioneer in the field of corporate law, the GOAT in his chosen field. He used his power, his newfound power, to promote racial tolerance and to protect the civil rights of the downtrodden and the oppressed. He was my inspiration, my hero, and my mentor. And if he were still with us now, he would have been 100 next month. I know he'd be right here, right in the front, toasting us all with his signature drink, champagne with ice cubes. Don't ask, I don't know. When I was 12, I'll never forget, my dad told me, do whatever you want to do. Try to be the best at it, but make the world a better place. That's the only definition of success that really matters. Muhammad Ali embodied that spirit precisely. He was unequivocally the greatest in his chosen field. Yet his priority was the betterment of this world, correcting injustice, bringing peace, kindness, and understanding. Those were the core tenets of who this great man was. And it's an incredible honor to be here in his very long shadow in this very building, this incredible monument to this incredible man, and to accept this award. Open your eyes and ears, and the heart will follow. That's all it takes. Just look around, find out what moves you, and move it. And I know now that my dad was right. Throughout what has been a wonderful and very lucky career for me in the music business, I've had a lot of #1 records, and every one has brought me joy, but none of them have brought me the type of intense satisfaction that I've derived from walking just one person out of prison, reuniting one family, and restoring hope to one community. And my spidey senses tell me that if Muhammad Ali were here today, he'd say much the same, that while he cherished every hard-fought championship, Olympic medal, and every accolade, he would not value them more highly than the man whose life he saved by talking him off a ledge when he was ready to jump off a building, the family he saved from eviction by putting his own physical body between the police and the family, and actually carrying their furniture back into the building, right, back into their home. And the countless young people that he inspired and continues to inspire to be courageous, steadfast, and strong. When you start, it takes a healthy dose of early courage. Challenges await, and you'll likely face the disapproval of others. When Muhammad Ali refused the draft, he was despised by many, almost everyone it seemed like at the time. But he was willing to sacrifice his career at the height of it, his status, and even his freedom to take us all on the path of righteousness. Courage is doing what's right, whether people see you or not, whether they like you or not, whether they agree with you or not. You don't have to solve all the world's problems at once, but the important thing to do is to do something. Maybe you start with a stolen red Schwinn or the desperate situation of a stranger. All I can say is that it is truly humbling. I can safely say it's the greatest honor of my life to accept this award in this man's name, and it's made even more special by the presence of the pillar, the rock of this incredible family, and of course, you know who I'm talking about. It's you, Lonnie. And I really appreciate you welcoming me in this way. And her daughter, Kalia, right over there, sitting with my son, Michael, who is my partner in justice, in love, and in life. This incredible person has become my ride or die, and she has given me an honor that is the only one that could possibly rival this one, which is that she has renamed me after her late great father, and she now calls me Muhammad Ali. Thank you all. And now let's all have a drink and toast the memory of Muhammad Ali. Thank you.